So that's fantastic to hear, Andreas, that your role kind of bridges finance and accounting, where it's under the umbrella of assurance, but it's financial services. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey in terms of moving from accounting and into finance? Because I know that a lot of our current students, as well as our prospective students, see accounting and finance as two very separate entities, and that you need to move from one entity into another field, like from accounting to finance. So tell me about your journey.
Well, I think for me, I would say that it's not necessarily as much of being in finance, but kind of having a cross overlap of both. Within my role, I primarily have audit clients, but because those audit clients are within financial service organizations, I get to really only deal primarily with wealth asset managers, private equity, and insurance companies, which all fall underneath kind of the finance side of things. So I find that having both the knowledge of what I've learned throughout university and from the experiences that I gained from doing competitions or even now at the workplace, working on financial service organizations as my first co-op, I found that there's really not it's not a pretty separation between the two. It's more so a gray area where you can draw from both to benefit both. And I think that was a strong realization and why I wanted to keep myself as knowledgeable as I can on the finance front, because it helps me understand to a much more meaningful level how my client operates, how their business model work, and how they approach, what's their mentality on how they approach their business, how they approach the revenue generation, and that helps me cater accounting, cater audit procedures much better, much more accurately to what my client is doing. I find that I've had a lot of positive responses from clients with that approach, because they feel like I don't just understand the audit, but I also understand them. And what they do as a business is really critical to having successful conversations. Mm-hmm. To answer the second part of the question about my career, so I started with, like I mentioned, with financial services, and as I was doing more and more audit, I realized I want to find ways of doing this better, smarter. And one of the things that I always did when I was going through even co-op or as a staff and as a senior is I would always look at files and figure out, is there something maybe we were doing, we were spending too much time, or maybe we can automate it, or maybe we can make it a little bit more standardized. Maybe we can do something that enhances the quality, but also reduces the burden of how much time needs to be spent on it, right? And through that, I explored different tools that EY had developed throughout that period of time that could help me enhance that audit quality. But also I started experimenting on my own, trying to learn different tools for data transformation, different tools for creating automation in assurance. And I realized, I'm really passionate about this. I love this. And I remember that I spoke to leadership, who's always been super supportive of my career throughout my time here. And I told them, I really, really love digital. I would love to get more involved in that. And this was still pretty nascent back then. It was, not many people were talking about, digital, because I don't know if many people knew about when I started my first co-op in 2016, we were still printing out consolidated working papers and going with a pen, red pen, green pen, through the paper on paper and actually tying things out. So we've moved quite a long way in just very few years, right? Back then we also had an archive room where everything was physically kept, and now no one, we would be called boomers if we bring that up to the new interns. So, we never kind of hear about how audit was done just as a mere 5 years ago, dramatically changed. So digital now has a huge place in what we do. We're looking for ways to better tackle client data, because client data has increased astronomically. So we need to understand how to better use it, and we can leverage it to come up with even better audit procedures. And I realized that I loved that. I spoke to leadership about it. They were really supportive of it. And then I think after 1 year, they approached me saying, we want to start this new kind of team initiative with FSO Digital. We would love to be a part of it. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to try this out. But at the same time, I also wanted to keep the audit side, because I loved it. I love working with my teams. I love working with my clients. And I wanted to have kind of the best of both worlds, I would say. And I have to say that I really believe I have that right now. I really enjoy both the digital aspect of the role and the assurance aspect that I maintain.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. And I think the life lesson here is don't be afraid to explore, and don't be afraid to take some calculated risks, but speak to leadership to inform them of your passions and yeah.
Honestly, I've discovered throughout my career, professional career, I would say, that a lot of the times people's, the biggest saboteur in everyone's life is themselves. If you don't speak up, if you don't say what you want, if you don't state what you're looking for, or you figure out your goals or you communicate them, it's much harder to kind of see the progress in return. And that's an advice that I give to a lot of people. It's like if what you want to do is different or you want to try something else, speak up about it. It never hurts. Most companies, corporations now are very open to that kind of approach. They want to know what you enjoy working on because they know that if you working on something you're passionate about is worth much more than trying to keep you doing something you don't like to do. And I've discovered that has really shaped my career, that I just speak up. I really want to try this, I really want to try that. And that has been highly beneficial to how I've navigated my career at Ernst & Young.
Mm-hmm. And fantastic advice and life lesson for our young aspiring professionals, for sure. But you've also touched upon something that I wanted to bring back as well, and in the sense that you had said that you're passionate about both the digital but you wanted to keep your foot in the door and continue to work in assurance, but while still kind of moving towards this financial services operations digital role. It certainly seems like the balance that you created during your undergrad and in your master's of both finance and accounting had absolutely been advantageous for you. And it wasn't a matter of choosing one or the other, but pursuing and balancing both.
It's a complete package, right? You want to be a well-rounded professional, and that means bringing in knowledge from a wide variety. And that's where, we could say the politics side comes in as well. A lot of my clients are insurance, so, climate change, geopolitical issues are huge in insurance. And are things that you need to know about, because otherwise you can't really have educated conversations with clients about it. And understanding how the politics influences the finance, and then how the finance influences the accounting is critical to having a full picture understanding and bringing kind of a full service quality to the approach we take with clients.
Mm-hmm. EY is very lucky to have you.
Thank you. I enjoy my time here. I really love the people I work with, and it's honestly a great place to work at for sure.